4. Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi, and welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, again, like last time, we will not have a guest. Actually, I tried to get a guest for one reason. I had planned not to have a guest at all, but I'll tell you about my guest who declined and the reason why I invited him. The guest was going to be Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter, who was a UN inspector in Iraq. The UN sent him to see if Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction, and we'll talk about his latest article where he advocates a divorce between the United States and Israel. And we will tell you why he's advocating that and what his latest article is all about. And we'll tell you why we invited him and why he declined. Because I did write another article last night and sent it out. It made a lot of waves on the internet, and Scott Ritter did not like it. But we'll tell you about all the details. But, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday was one of the Muslims' holiest holidays. It was the Eid al-Adha, which signifies the end of the pilgrimage season where Muslims go to Mecca and perform the pilgrimage, which is one of the five bases and for Islam. And so what happened is 3 million Muslims actually made it to Mecca and Saudi Arabia to perform the fifth pillar of Islam. And also, of course, this year it happened to be to come around at the same time as Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody. And happy holidays for the rest who do not celebrate these religious holidays. So happy holidays to everyone out there, regardless of what your religious belief or lack of. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like that we are going to allow Israel control of our ballistic missiles because Congress is set to approve a plan to integrate the United States and Israeli missile defense systems. What this means, ladies and gentlemen, that the Israelis will have control of our missiles defense systems. Something that I don't think we need to do, something that we should not do. I think it's a mistake to do it. But that's what Congress is about to approve, that we join the Israelis, we integrate our system with their system. Of course, our system is a lot more probably sophisticated than theirs, but they will have a say-so in our system too. The proposal is authored by United States Representative Mark Kirk, Republican, of course, of Illinois, is part of the Defense Authorization Act passed last Wednesday by the United States House of Representatives and due to be considered by the Senate before Christmas break. Under the proposal, the Secretary of Defense must within 6 months present a plan to Congress, a plan to improve the coordination, interoperability, and integration of the United States National Ballistic System Missile Defense System with Israel's missile defense architecture. a statement from Kirk's office said. Well, ladies and gentlemen, also, yesterday it was, as I mentioned before, the first days of the Eid al-Adha celebration for Muslims. Israel attacked these Muslims and Christians in Gaza, and as a matter of fact, killed 12 of them yesterday. This was the Israelis' holiday season greetings to the Palestinians. This is a car that they had fired a missile on and killed everybody who were in that car, and people who were bystanders. Of course, you know, cars do drive on streets. And they have put some missiles in some homes, as this old man still probably pointing at the plane that destroyed his home and killed people inside. So this was the Israelis' season greetings to the Palestinians. Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I will be speaking about an article that Scott Ritter had written a couple of days ago and published. Let me tell you a little bit about who Scott Ritter is. Scott Ritter started back in 1990-91 fooling with the Iraqi Scuds. He was a Marine captain, and he was very much not in charge, but he worked on a plan to see what the United States can do with Iraqi Scud missiles. You remember those Scud missiles. So he had made numerous visits to Israel. And also Scott became a star, as a matter of fact, in the year or a couple of years leading up to our attack on Iraq. Scott was sent back again. As a matter of fact, he was sent back to make sure, after the Gulf War, that the Iraqis got rid of all their weapons of mass destruction. He was sent back again in 98 to continue the same effort. And he was also sent as a supervisor back in 2000 when our government was beating the drums of war against Iraq. And we went to the United Nations and said Iraq must disarm and must destroy all of its weapons of mass destruction. United Nations inspectors, you do remember, this was only a few years back, when Iraq allowed the United Nations weapons inspectors to go to Iraq. Well, Scott Ritter was one of those supervisors who made it there to Iraq. And again, he made plenty of visits to Israel. And at one time, he was not allowed back in Iraq. And as a matter of fact, Saddam Hussein refused to allow him back because they said that he was a CIA Mossad agent. He was taking Iraqi secrets, going back to Israel, and discussing this with the Israelis. So the Iraqis refused to allow him back in. But as time went on and Scott Ritter became famous, his star was rising, he became the favorite son of the Republicans, who were bringing him into congressional hearings. He was making all the rounds on the network, and he was talking very much in favor of what George Bush was talking about. And he was all gung-ho about the Iraqi weapons of mass destruction and the importance of destroying the Iraqi weapons of mass destruction and how dangerous were those weapons of mass destruction. Especially after Saddam refused him entry or re-entry to Iraq. Then he became very vocal against Saddam and the Iraqis. But as time went on, he changed his mind. As a matter of fact, in 2002, he was advocating against the Bush regime and his plans to attack Iraq because of the weapons of mass destruction. Because this inspector, who was a supervisor, he was a team leader, he said that Iraq does not have weapons of mass destruction. And he started on a crusade, so to speak. He's a courageous man, and he goes after what he believes in, which is, now this man is well known in the circles of anti-war. He had spoken on numerous conferences of anti-war conferences. The picture you're looking at here is he was in Iraq and actually attended a session of the Iraqi parliament in 2002. This was when Saddam was still in power. So he went from being accused of being an Israeli Mossad CIA spy into more of a hero for the Iraqi government at that time, because he was exposing the lies of George Bush. This man was there. This man checked out the weapons of mass destruction that Iraq supposedly had, and the Bush administration went to war on those bases. Scott Ritter started his crusade into anti-war, hoping not to allow George Bush to go to war against Iraq. He did not succeed in that, but he did make a name for himself. He wrote a couple of books, and he made a name for himself. He is a hot commodity on the speaking tours right now in the anti-war movement. And I do happen to respect his opinions in many cases. But his latest articles, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where me and him kind of drew the line, where I disagree with him and he disagrees with me. He wrote an article. He started his article by saying, I have, for some time now, publicly articulated my sympathy and support for the state of Israel, even while criticizing those cases that I believed constituted poor judgment and bad policy. My stance was based upon my past experiences with Israel, which began indirectly in 1990-91 when I was involved in counter-Scott activities during Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and continued in a much more direct fashion as weapons inspector with the United Nations Special Commission, which was known also as UNSCOM, charged with disarming Iraqi weapons of mass destruction. You see, ladies and gentlemen, he started this article, by the way, the title of it, that the United States need to re-examine this relationship with Israel. It's a good article. It's a good article, and I encourage everyone to go and read it. And you will see what my problem with him, with this article is. And but he had, you see, this is the thing. You can criticize anyone in the world and any country in the world and any religion in the world as long as you do not touch Israel and Judaism. if you are to criticize Israel, you better make a hell of an introduction of how much you love Israel, and how much you love the Israeli people, and how much you admire Israel. Then you can criticize them. You know, this reminds me of President Jimmy Carter when he wrote his book, Peace Not Apartheid. He went on and on of telling the world how much he loved Israel and what he had done for Israel. That he had put his election basically on the line for Israel. That he had brought Sadat to make peace with Israel. That he had sacrificed so much for Israel. Then, after he said all that, then he criticized them for the apartheid wall that they are building around, well, actually that they built around the Palestinian towns and cities. It's like you can criticize anyone you want. You can criticize Jesus if you want, and people did. Some people called him imposter. Mainly the people in Israel. And I think those of you who are aware of that situation know exactly what else people in Israel have said about Christianity and Jesus. Peace be upon him. But yet, we find that whenever we want to criticize this holy state called Israel, we better say how much we love them and how much we admire them. Let's continue with Scott Ritter letter. And by the way, he read my article, and I invited him to come on the show so we can talk about this, about his article, which we will go through in a little bit. But let me tell you what he wrote. He said, Mr. Hesham Tillawi, I read your article and could not disagree with you more. My article, by the way, is also on my website, which is www.currentissues.tv. Let's go ahead and throw that on there so people can go and read my article and they'll see what exactly I said about Scott Ritter. But he said, I read your article and could not disagree with you more. In particular, this is his words, in particular, I don't like your tone. So, the tone of my article is what he has the most problem with. Because I say things just very simple, frank way, without adding little spices here and touch them up here and there, without kissing butt to anyone, and I just say things. I say things like the way I feel. And so he did not like my article. So he goes on to say, as such, I thank you for the invitation to appear on your program, but respectfully decline. That's fine. I think Scott Ritter, in this last article that he wrote, he very much exposed himself. I don't know if he intended to expose himself that way or not, but he exposed himself that he is one of those people that I always say they are carrying half-truths. You see, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot carry half-truth. You have got to give the truth and nothing but the truth. And even with that, so help you God. Because half-truths don't work. One of the things in this anti-war movement that I criticize them for, which I consider myself as part of that movement, we just had a conference in California a couple of months ago. The title of it was No More Wars for Israel Conference, because we believe that we went and attacked Iraq because of Israel. We have shown on this program many times with evidence of how strong the Israel lobby is and how strong the Jewish influence is on our media, on our economy, on our industry, on our Congress through AIPAC, on our administration. All you have to do is look at the people who started in this administration with George Bush, who pushed us to go to war against Iraq, such as Douglas Feith, Paul Wolfowitz, Richard Pearl, and many, many more that we have named by name of who these people are and why we went and attacked Iraq. But yet, Scott Ritter and his likes, they will not put the blame on Israel. When it comes to Israel, they will do articles like this. They have to kiss butt first and then criticize them very, very little. Let's move on. As weapons inspector, I made numerous visits to Israel. And by the way, he was investigated by the FBI for visiting Israel while he was a weapons inspector in Iraq. He made many trips back and forth to Israel. Didn't we have intelligence services here in the United States that is costing us $4 billion a year to run? But yet, he would go and visit Israel, as he says here. It's not something that we made up. He said, as weapons inspector, I made numerous visits to Israel for the purpose of coordinating with the Israeli intelligence community on matters pertaining to Iraqi weapons of mass destruction. I was greatly impressed, of course. I added that. Not only with the professionalism of the Israeli intelligence services, but also with the Israeli people and society. During my time in Israel, I was witness to numerous horrific events, including several terrorist bombings and the assassination of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Now, when he writes this, ladies and gentlemen, you would think it was the Palestinians that killed Yitzhak Rabin. And by the way, in 90 and 91, that's like right after the Gulf War, in the middle of it, and there was nothing happening. There were no bombings in Israel. So I'm wondering what events he's calling horrific events, terrorist bombings in Israel, and how many. And then he includes, and the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. It was an Israeli Jewish settler named Amir that killed Yitzhak Rabin. It was a Jew man that killed Yitzhak Rabin. But yet, when you read this, and you see that Scott Ritter lumps it in with the terrorist bombings in Israel, the horrific that he witnessed, and what I have asked Mr. Ritter in my article, did he witness any Israeli bombings of Palestinian homes while he was there? Did he witness any Palestinians being kidnapped from their homes? Did he witness any Palestinian school kids shot to death while he was there? Where an Israeli captain, after killing a 10-year-old girl, she was dying in her school uniform, went right there and emptied his magazine in her lifeless body. Did you witness that, Scott Ritter? Okay. Now, He goes on to say the resilience of the people of Israel in absorbing these blows, yet continuing to live life to its fullest, was remarkable and worthy of admiration. Kissing butt again, Scott? What about admiration for the Palestinian people who have been for the last 60 years and more being killed, maimed, imprisoned, their land being confiscated, their homes being demolished? 80% of them live as in the diaspora. Many of them live as refugees, and they're still living life to the fullest, even under Israeli bullets and under Israeli bombs. They're still living life to the fullest, even when Israel has a complete siege around Gaza. Even when Israel cut off water and electricity and oil supplies to Gazans. Even when they only allowed 40% of food to get into Gaza. And this is not 20 years ago. This is now. And their leaders will say that we will have many thin Gazans. We will put Gazans on a diet. Many children are dying due to malnutrition in Gaza and lack of medicines. Wouldn't you admire those Palestinians and their resilience for absorbing all these blows? But yet, Mr. Ritter will admire the Israelis and blame the Palestinians, even though he did not directly said it, for the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. But the unsuspecting, unknowing, they will think that the Palestinians did that. He goes on to say, as a first-hand witness to the remarkable vigor of the Israeli state and its people, and as someone who considers himself to be their friend, you know, that's 3 paragraphs of his letter, and you still have no clue yet of exactly what you want him to say. Of exactly what he's trying to say. It's already done. Okay? So far, all of it is kiss and butt. Please, dear Israel, I'm with you. You're my friend. I love you. But now, he goes on to say, it saddens me to see just how poorly the current Israeli government returns this friendship, not to me personally, but to my country, the United States of America. The government of Prime Minister Ehud Olmert has embarked on policies that are questionable at best when one examines them from a purely Israeli standpoint. They are nothing less than a betrayal of the United States when examined from a broader perspective. He thinks that it was only the government, the current Israeli government of Ehud Olmert. He does not know that the policies of all the Israeli governments from 1948 until now has been nothing but a betrayal for the United States government. Even when you went there, Scott, and you visited with those Israelis, and you enjoyed your time in Tel Aviv, they were doing the same policies. The Israeli AIPAC policy against the United States has not changed. You have a problem with Olmert? What about Sharon? I don't know what they're doing with Sharon. I guess they are pickling him. It's going to be a pickled Sharon. You did not have problems when Sharon said on open mic that don't worry, he told Shimon Peres, and you know that conversation, but I'll remind you with it, when he said, don't worry about the United States, we control the United States. Yeah. That was an Israeli government too. What about the first government of Israel when they forced our president to recognize them? When the vice president said no, when many people said no, it is not good for our interests. That wasn't a bad policy? What about when George Bush the father, not the Son and the Holy Ghost, but the father, when he said that those settlements you are building in Israel, building settlements is an obstacle to peace, and he withheld the $10 billion loan guarantees. See, Israel applies for loan guarantees all the time, and we had allowed them, we given them $10 billion, but the president has to sign that, and he said, I'm not doing it because what you are doing is an obstacle to peace. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is an American vital interest to have peace in the Middle East. It is to our vital interest, it is to our future to have peace in the Middle East. It is not in our interest to have this thug in the Middle East called Israel bullying everybody there in our name and destroying our reputation that took over 200 years to build, that is being ruined, not just in the Muslim and the Arab world, but all over the world, because we are not being fair. And it's not up to us to be fair or not. This is what the Israelis are doing in our government. It's not that we are doing this because we wanted to, but because Israel has a grip on George Bush in the White House, on our Congress, making them do these things. But yet, he has a problem with the current Israeli government. Now, he moves on to say the insidious manner in which the current Israeli government has manipulated the domestic political machinery of the United States to produce support for its policies constitute nothing less than direct interference in the governance of a sovereign state. Yes, you're right, but it is not just the current Israeli government, it is all Israeli governments. You're right, I'm going to read that because this is exactly what we have been preaching here for the last 4 years or 5 years. The insidious manner in which the current Israeli government has manipulated the domestic political machinery of the United States to produce support for its policies constitutes nothing less than direct interference in the governance of a sovereign state. We used to have a sovereign state, Scott. We don't have a sovereign state anymore because of Israel. Because of Israel, we do not have a sovereign state right here in the United States. And I always maintained that I came from a country that is occupied by Israel to the land of the free and the brave. It turned out to be occupied by Israel politically too. It is not just the current Israeli government that you should have a problem with. It is all the Israeli governments that you should have problems with. We move on to say the degree to which the current Israeli government has succeeded in this regard can be tracked not only by the words and actions of the administration of President George Bush and the American Congress, but also by the extent to which the pro-Israel lexicon has taken hold within the mainstream media of the United States. Yes, Scott, we have been talking about this for years and years. And guess what? This did not happen just because of Olmert. Olmert, as a matter of fact, is the weakest prime minister Israel ever had. This government right now does not have the power to do what you are saying it did. Israel right now has the weakest government, but all the other governments before it has done this. You're right. So I don't know why are you afraid and you feel like you have to kiss butt to the Israelis and to the Jewish influence right here and the Jewish lobby in the United States that you would have just to blame the current Israeli government. No, the current Israeli government did not do all the things that you are saying, all of them combined, including the ones over here in New York. AIPAC. It's not just the Israeli government that had done that. It is the Jewish lobby right here in the United States that had accomplished that. The degree to which the current Israeli government has succeeded in this regard can be tracked not only by the words and actions of the administration of President Bush. It's not just the action of President Bush. It's the actions of all American presidents, of all American governments since 1948 and before. We move on to say one would expect such efforts to shape the domestic. Actually, let's go back a little. Let's go back a little because this is where me and him crossed each other's paths. He said, witness the pro-Israel bias displayed. He's talking about the media. Witness the pro-Israel bias displayed when discussing the situation in southern Lebanon, the airstrike in Syria, or the Iranian situation, and the retarding of any effort towards a responsible discussion of anything dealing with Israel becomes apparent. You forgot the Palestinians, Scott. Also the discussion of any Palestinians, any issues that to do with Palestine and Palestinians, you will find the media doing the same thing. It is not. See, you forgot. You only mentioned Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. But you forgot Palestine and the Palestinians that are the core problem. Extremely significant part of that whole formula. You happen not to discuss it or mention anything with it. It must be understood that the government of Olmert is acting in a post-9/11 environment with considerable facilitation in the administration of President Bush, including the Vice President. These two factors combine to create a cycle of development that allows a purely Israeli point of view to dominate American policy. It has been that way. The Israeli point of view has been the point of view that is dominating in the United States. You are just now waking up to it. Scott, you've been there. You visited Israel. You know how the media is controlled here by them and the Jewish lobby and Jewish influence over the media and the government here. This is not something new. Why would you put yourself in such position? I have no idea. You are a smart man. You're making a lot of money on all these tours and speeches, but yet I find you here. Probably you don't want to lose those tours and speeches. Maybe that's why. You see, I invited you to come on the program so you can tell the people why you said what you said and would not expose the whole truth, because you're exposing half of the truth. But as I always say, if you think you will have much more wider audience and people will not accuse you of being an anti-Semitic, and you did this, see, I always give these people an excuse that, you know what, if he comes out and says the things that he's supposed to say, then he will be labeled anti-Semitic and then he will have problems. But yet he has to kiss butt first and then he will say what they're doing. Because you are very clear and very accurate on what they had done, but not just this current Israeli government. He goes on to say the statement by Israel officials concerning the recent national intelligence estimate on Iran and its nuclear program are perhaps the best manifestation of this reality. Israel's public security minister has condemned the national intelligence estimate, which we've talked about the national intelligence estimate for more. But I want to, for the sake of time, I just want to move down to when he says, let there be no doubt, Israel and its considerable lobby of supporters here in America will scream bloody murder if their aid is trimmed in any fashion, but in the greater interest of what will best benefit the security interest of the United States and indeed the Middle East and the entire world, the grip Israel has on American policy making must come to an end. I agree with you, Scott. No one could have said it better than you. It's up to the American people to make this change. Yes, it is. First and foremost, by recognizing that a real problem exists in American-Israeli relations. Yes, it does. Then by electing officials to Congress who will deal responsibly with these problems based on the behind-the-scenes lobbying of Israel and its proxies, but rather the legitimate interests of the United States. Yes, now you are talking my language. You just messed it up when you had to kiss butt and when you had to say half-truths, because you did not even say anything about the Palestinians where you should have, if you want to be fully truthful, if there's such a phrase. If Israel desires to reestablish a relationship with the United States built upon the principles of mutual trust and benefit, then so be it. Such a relationship is something I could embrace without hesitation. I bet you would. But you know what? You know, before he said all that, he did say that it is, if I can find it very quick, that the American independence, where the United States would have to very much break up this relationship with Israel. And he said, well, America would have to go and, break up. Well, America can't. It's just like the Palestinians can't get rid of the Israeli occupation, the Jewish occupation in Palestine. You cannot get rid of the Jewish occupation in America. Simple. The Palestinians understood this a long time ago. They understood it in 1965 when they said nothing will liberate us except an armed struggle. They understood that. Because Israel does not understand this type of language of do this or I'm walking out. You can't. You can't walk out on this. It's not a deal. It's not a relationship. You think this is a relationship. It is not a relationship. This is an occupation. Don't think that any government, any United States government, will ever be able to say, look here, Israel, you either straighten out, take your hands off my media, take your hands off my government, and I will become your friend. Number one, if our government would have to say that, take your hands off our government and our Congress, who the heck is going to make them do it if they are controlling that? If they are controlling our Congress? And how in the world are you going to get this message to the American people to elect the people that you are talking about when the same media that they have control of is basically the one that is pushing these candidates and shoving them down the American throats? I want to see how much this media is doing to elect Ron Paul, the man who says everything right when it comes to the United States and its government, the United States and its sovereignty. You want to tell me your friends in Israel, when you were their friends, when they killed many United States sailors on the USS Liberty ship, when they torpedoed and destroyed that ship and wanted to sink it, you want to tell me why our President Johnston, he actually stopped? There were some planes going to help the poor ship that the Israelis deliberately and in cold-blooded killed American sailors. United States Navy dispatched help, but that help was recalled by McNamara because the president does not, and in his own words, does not want to embarrass an ally. You want to tell me this is a relationship? You want to tell me this is a relationship? You want to tell me this is a relationship that you can get away from? How are you going to do that, Scott? How are you going to get away from this relationship? Anyhow, we have probably about 10 minutes to go, so I know whenever we are talking about subjects like this, our people like to listen, but if you would like to comment on this, we would we would welcome your phone calls, and if you want to talk about anything, we'll welcome your phone calls and your comments or questions. But just to summarize, whenever somebody wants to criticize anything, they can do it, and you will have some people who will say that is freedom of speech. If they talk about Jesus in a derogatory way, you will find many people will say that's okay. They are just exercising their First Amendment. When they talk about the government, when they talk about Islam, when they talk about anything, when they portray Jesus in a very, very malicious ways, everybody will say, oh, they're just exercising their freedom of speech. Okay? But when it comes to Israel, they would have to go through a whole article of nothing but how much they love Israel and how much they do this and how much they do that before they criticize them. And then what really got me into all worked up about this is when he thinks that the United States can just turn away from this relationship. No, you can't. And then when he dreams of the American people electing congressmen to go in Washington against these policies of Israel, you must be dreaming, because everyone that gets up there would have been approved by them. You've seen what happened with Cynthia McKinney when she went against them. You've seen what happened with Paul, what's his name? God. Sometimes on the show when it's live, I draw blank on these names, even though the person I'm thinking of is extremely important and extremely famous. But Hilliard out of Alabama, even Ron Paul, when they went to his district and actually defeated him, but he came back. And Cynthia McKinney, the same thing, she came back, but then they went back again. These people will not take any prisoners. These people will not take any prisoners when it comes to the American Congress. These people would have to control 100%. If they can't 100%, then let it be 98%. If you notice on any bill in Congress, you will have, when it comes to Israel, it's like 98% or 98 senators will vote with Israel, with 2 probably not showing up, or courageous like the senator from West Virginia and the congressman from West Virginia like Nick Rahal. But everybody else was paid and bought for with money. With money. Even right here. Even right here in Louisiana. But anyhow, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we are witnessing. This anti-war movement, the anti-war movement, you've got to be, and it's also called the truth movement. That's what gets me. It's called the truth movement. No, let's call it the half-truth movement, not the truth movement. Because this is nothing but half-truth. This article by Scott Ritter, which by the way, there are a lot of things, a lot of good things in this article. A lot of good things in this article. But it's not the full truth. It's not the whole truth. Because it's still, he is not blaming Israel. You know what? He's not even saying anything about Israel's role in 9/11. What is Israel's role in 9/11? That's the one that we need. That's the biggest question that the truth movement needs to answer. But you know what? Anytime they speak, especially their star speakers, and I guarantee you the media and those who control it will want to raise these people way up there, those who do not touch Israel. But those who are bringing in the Israeli factor in 9/11, they will not have their even 10 seconds in the media. But you will have people like Scott Ritter, who gives half-truths. Even though his half-truths still half-truths, ladies and gentlemen, I still admire the guy for his courage. He doesn't have full courage, but he has some courage. He has a hell of a lot more courage than a lot of people out there who know the truth and not saying not even a quarter of it. But at least he's telling half-truths. And if everybody tells half-truths, eventually we will get to the full truth. It would be much better if people would say the whole truth and get it over with. Be courageous. You know, he was courageous. He was courageous when he went from believing George Bush into actually becoming the Times Man of the Week in 2002, because he went against George Bush, and actually he was courageous enough to say that George Bush is lying to the country, that Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction. So, Scott Ritter, still, in my book, an American hero. He's still an American hero. I have not given up on him, because he is saying in his article, and I encourage everyone to go on the internet and read his articles, because his article has a lot of good stuff in it. Stuff that we have been preaching here in the last 5 years. Stuff that everybody needs to know, which is Israel's policies. But of course he says the current Israeli. That's wrong. It is the Israeli policies, period. It has not. Israel's influence and Jewish influence on our media did not start from today. It did not start with Omrit. Okay? But that's what we have. And that's, I guess you can't ask for 100% for people to be full of truth for 100% of the time. But anyhow, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that we will be, next year, we will be coming starting January 3rd at 8 o'clock on Thursdays. So we're still going to be on Thursdays, but it will be 8 o'clock in the evening. And from 8 to 9. We're not going to have 2 hours. This 1 hour thing sits very well with me. It's given me more time to do a lot of other things that I could not otherwise do. And also, don't forget our radio show on RBN. That is, if you want to catch the radio show, it's on Saturdays from 4 to 6 on the Republic Broadcasting Network. And you can listen to it on www.republicbroadcasting.org. And, of course, our website is www.currentissues.tv. Turn all your friends to this program. Hopefully we will have more and more good programs for you. And I know we have a very educated audience out there. I hear from a lot of you all the time, in person and on email. And I know you like what we're doing. We kind of very much, we wanted to see, maybe next time we'll see. Of course, it's going to be the last show of the year, next Thursday, the 27th. But what we are thinking of actually doing more and more, and you can tell us next time, is basically have less guests, because a lot of you have written to us and a lot of you have asked us to basically tackle and analyze what is going on in the world for you, and every once in a while bring in a guest. So what we might do is actually compromise on that. So we might do 1 or 2 a month where we will analyze what is going on in the world for you, and then other times we will have guests. And we will try to, it looks like that we might have a lot of material to cover for next year too. Remember, it is the election year, and everybody's jockeying for positions. Of course, the Democrats, as we always say, they will be attacked, and attacked severely, especially because of Barack Obama. and his past being some Muslim years that he had spent in some Muslim schools, probably going, they're not talking about it right now, but I guarantee you, when it comes after the convention, he will be attacked and attacked severely for it. So, of course, Ron Paul, who is the American hero, he's the one that will bring this country back to where it was and restore the reputation that the United States had and built for over 200 years and was messed up in the last 6-7 years. And so basically that's what it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, we only have half a minute to tell you goodbye, and don't forget, tell all your friends about us, and make sure you tell your friends that it will be 8 o'clock starting next year, not 6:30. So we'll be coming to you next year at 8 o'clock in the evening. And want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and enjoy the season. Good night, and go do the right thing.
Opinions expressed in the previous program are solely those